Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, the NFL Week 1 preview. We are going to break down every single game, identify some players we're expecting to do a little better than the projections might say, and some guys that might disappoint you this week. So we got a lot to get to. Let's start the show. Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, John McKechnie. That is Mario Puig. Mario, we made it. As of this recording, kickoff of the NFL season just hours away. Ravens, Chiefs, Arrowhead, AFC Championship rematch. Are you excited?
Definitely, and knock on wood, it seems like it's supposed to be pretty decent weather. Arrowhead can kind of be a stingy stadium, like an anti-Coors kind of factor, but apparently going to be almost like 90 degrees at kickoff, so it's almost like a Florida game or something like that. But yeah, hopefully it's a nice clean fight and all that.
I'm excited, and I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of break down how this show is going to operate on Thursdays here during the season. So in the past, we've gone with these longer episodes. We are going to get it more bite-sized this time around. So we're going to look at every single game on the slate, just like we always do. We're just going to condense it a little bit, highlight a couple players from each game, and that will be that. So why don't we get started with this Ravens Chiefs game? Who do you kind of have your eye on as players who may do a little better, may do a little worse than expected?
If we're talking kind of a sleeper type for the Ravens, this might be a decent spot for Rashad Bateman, if only because you might figure Zay Flowers gets followed around quite a bit by Trent McDuffie, and the Chiefs never really replaced L'Jarius Sneed. They're just kind of on to the backups this year. So Josh Williams, I think, might be one of those kinds of guys are probably pretty good, but they're probably easier to beat than McDuffie by quite a bit, even so.
I do like Bateman. I have a lot of Bateman exposure, particularly in best ball formats. So I'm hoping that pans out. I don't know if I quite have the guts to start him in most of my regular redraft leagues this year, but
not ideal, yeah.
Especially with it being the Thursday night game, other options, some injury report stuff to get sorted there. But I do generally like him as a bit of a sleeper. As far as the other side of the ledger goes, anyone that you think might fall a little shy?
Maybe Lamar Jackson, actually, just because I think the Ravens want to run the ball like crazy in this game. Not even because of that comment that came out that was, I think, today quoted from Lamar about like I hate throwing the ball or whatever, but he wasn't saying like he doesn't want to pass. He's just like, I just want to run everybody over kind of thing. And with Derrick Henry there, with the Chiefs kind of daring you to run with a lot of like 5-6 defensive back kind of stuff going on, it might be a game where the Ravens can and should run the ball a lot. And especially if Zay Flowers is getting locked up by McDuffie, you're kind of asking a lot out of Lamar, Andrews, Bateman, whoever, to produce more than like 200 yards, more than 120 yards between the two of them. So it just doesn't scale up as easily as the Kansas City passing game. And Derrick Henry, if he gets going, he could take obviously a lot of the rushing production.
Yeah, an interesting wrinkle that I saw got thrown out there by John Ewing, who does a lot of great, kind of factoids out of BetMGM's sports book. He notes that like 99% of the money is on the over on Derrick Henry's rushing prop, which is set at just 63 yards.
Oh, wow.
Usually that kind of freaks me out.
That's like half what it should be.
Yeah. So, therein lies why all the action's on Derrick Henry getting more than 63. But, we will see. I'm a little bit worried about him myself with, Chris Jones being able to eat up that interior offensive line that is, completely retooled from last year.
Are they starting Falel at a right guard?
I think so.
That's crazy. I mean, it might work, but it might not work. I don't know. That's a interesting experiment. 380-pound guy.
Yeah, they're gonna need to like just tie his legs to either Linderbaum or Rosengarten because I don't know. He was an interesting
It might work,
story.
man. You got to, and also if he gets his hands on people, that might tire out the defense a little bit. So we'll see.
We shall. Let's press on. Let's hit the Friday game. We have the first ever game in Brazil. We've got the Eagles and the Packers squaring off. 49.5 is the over-under in this one. Eagles 2-point favorites. Who are we seeing here? I guess specifically, like if there is there a Packers pass catcher that is that you're eyeing up as far as someone that can exceed expectations? Because I feel like everyone had the hardest time kind of sorting through what this receiving rotation is going to look like. So, how does the season get started? Who starts out hot?
I'm a little skeptical of all the Eagles corners at this point because of age in the cases of Slay and Bradbury and Kenyon Mitchell in his case because it seems like they have to play him in the slot, and I don't know if that's really his ideal place. I think his ideal place would be on the boundary, and if Maddox has to run ahead of Mitchell, then you're back to like last year's exactly the same corner rotation, which clearly wasn't working. So if you're the Packers, as long as you just don't let that would still fierce Eagles front seven, as long as you keep them from taking over the game as a pass rush, you should be fine. And to me, Jaden Reed is clearly the way you do that. So especially if Reed's going against Mitchell, I don't think Mitchell's really built to go left or right the way Reed can take him, the way LaFleur can set it up. So once they get the run game going, there should be a deep shot, maybe off the play action for someone like Christian Watson, especially if Maddox is at corner, because Maddox is 5'9", 180 or something. So yeah, Christian Watson against Maddox is something to watch for, or Reed against Mitchell, I think is the other thing to watch for.
So unsurprisingly, we've got a bunch of interesting lineup questions flowing in from the chat. We'll hit a couple of those real quick. Blue Crew wants to know if he should drop Dawson Knox for Cade Otton, Colby Parkinson, Juwan Howard, or Hunter Henry in a PPR. Otton, I believe, went the highest among that group. I think conventionally he probably projects the best.
I assume that's Johnson, Juwan, and I'd take all four of those tight ends over Knox myself.
Yes.
So whichever one, I like all of them. Parkinson could be like a 700 snap guy for the Rams. Otton played like 800, 900 snaps last year. So that's a lot more than Knox is going to play, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I definitely thumbs up on dropping Dawson Knox in a 12-teamer. That's just a redraft. I'd probably do it for Otton, most specifically with Juwan Johnson probably being my second favorite of that group. Although, as I mentioned last week, I have way too much Hunter Henry. Eric wants to know, would you trade Jerome Ford for Michael Wilson and Rico Dowdle?
No, because to me that trade is Ford for Michael Wilson, which I just wouldn't make.
Correct. And then John D's got a super comment here. Much appreciated there, John. Dynasty question. Would you get rid of Wan'Dale Robinson for Yoshi on the Bengals?
If you have to get rid of one of those two, I'd rather get rid of Yoshivas, but it's a tough call. Yoshivas is on the way up himself. So, they're two decent players, both running in the slot. I just think Wan'Dale's more talented.
I think Wan'Dale's more talented, and I think his path to production is a little bit clearer right now. You're pretty much going to have to wait for T. Higgins to be gone, and then you're going to have to assume that Jermaine Burton is beaten out by Yoshivas. So for me, even if it's an ugly offense there in New York, it's still Wan'Dale for me. And then lastly, Xavier Worthy or Jaden Reed in your flex?
I'd go with Reed, but obviously Worthy is better situated than a month ago after the Marquise Brown injury. I just think the Ravens' corners are quite good, and I'm not as convinced the Eagles are ready to defend Reed.
Excited to see Nate Wiggins out there this evening. Also really excited about his former Clemson teammate Trenton Simpson filling in for Patrick Queen. I think he could be a nice IDP play for those in such leagues. Anyone you could see kind of falling short in that Eagles-Packers game?
Not really. The Eagles are so narrowly channeled with their offensive usage. I don't think any of those guys are in a whole lot of trouble. The Packers defense is okay, might be even pretty good, but not enough to, I think, worry about the Eagles. And on the Packers, it's like we already know all the usage is so horizontal among the receivers. I don't think anyone should be so disappointed if, for instance, Dontavian Wicks finishes with like 2 catches for 30 yards or something. It's like that's just, it's not a big deal if that happens.
Right. You kind of know what you're getting into if you invested in the Packers passing game. And yeah, the Eagles, I mean, it's a really high total in that game, 49.5. Again, it's going to be Barkley. It's going to be A.J. Brown. It's going to be Devontae Smith. No one else.
Maybe a lot of
really...
Josh Jacobs too, with Emmanuel Wilson and Marshawn Lloyd are both kind of like less than 100%. They might need to call up LaMichael P. Ryan, who you don't want to end up there.
No, you really don't. Before we move on to Sunday, we got a message from our pals at Underdog. We are proud to partner with Underdog Fantasy this NFL season. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. It's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. In addition to their popular best ball contest, Underdog offers great DFS pick'em games. Pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in this week's game for a chance to win big. You can win up to 1,000 times your money in a single night by picking between 2 and 8 players to build a pick'em entry. I'm, obviously a huge Underdog guy. I give them a ton of money for their best ball. I don't seem to get a ton in return, but this year will be different. But their pick'em is a lot of fun. If I'm playing tonight, which I will be, I think I'm going to dabble a little bit, taking a higher on Justice Hill's receiving yardage, because I think that he absorbs that usage behind Derrick Henry in the passing game. I don't think they're going to use Derrick Henry too much. I also like the higher for Rashee Rice's fantasy points. I see him at least scoring 1 touchdown, probably over 60, 70 in the receiving yards area statistics. So I feel like Rashee Rice for his fantasy points, I like the higher there. Sign up with RWNFL to claim your free Pick Plus first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. And don't forget to register with my promo code RWNFL to claim your free Pick Plus. First-time deposit, again, the offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. You got to be 18 or older, 21 or older in Massachusetts, Arizona, 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska. We'll quiz there on your state abbreviations. Still got it. And present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. If you're in Arizona, it is 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That is 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. If you're in New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Also got a message from our friends and presenting sponsors over at Blue Wire. All right, Sunday, let's keep rocking. Falcons, Steelers. Falcons 42.5 point favorites in this one. Or I'm sorry, 42.5 is the over-under, 3-point favorites in this one. They're not favored by that much. I think that I'm buying in on this Falcons offense, and I know the Steelers defense is stingy historically, but I like, it's kind of a similar analog to the Eagles, not quite as proven yet. Of course, we haven't seen it yet from this Falcons team, but I think it's going to be narrowly channeled. I think that Drake London is going to get his. I think Kyle Pitts is going to get his. I think Bijan, and then, of course, by extension, Kirk Cousins. So I feel like it's just kind of wheels up all around for the Falcons, even with what is on paper kind of a tough matchup against the Steelers defense. But what say you for this game?
I think it's a dangerous spot for the Falcons, being the first game with a whole new cast of, critical decision makers and players at once. So It's good that they're starting at home. It would be much more harrowing if they were in Pittsburgh for this game. But I think for the Falcons to protect themselves from the Steelers' pass rush, especially, they're going to have to run the ball a lot, not just with John, but maybe like Algier getting 10 carries too, especially as they ease Cousins in, especially as they kind of make sure they actually know how to run the offense and all that. So it's a bad defense to have to test whether you're ready to play on offense against. It's like you just the Steelers have a way of making things difficult for everybody, and I don't really want to call it, but I'll lean Pittsburgh. I think you're totally right about the narrowly channeled Falcons offense, which is why I wouldn't worry about any of those guys. Like John, I think it's like 18 carries, maybe more. Drake London, Pitts, Mooney, I think even get decent target counts. But I am a little worried about Cousins' efficiency. And, not that I expect the Steelers' offense to be good on the other side, but it's like, again, the Steelers, their model of competition is about like grabbing you, pulling you down into the mud water with them and, struggling down there to see you can get out. And I think it'll maybe trend toward the under, whatever that is, 42.5, you said it was. So,
yes.
Maybe like a 21-17 kind of game, something like that.
That still gets the cover for the Falcons. I would say on like the potential sit or disappointment side of this, I'd be worried about Pat Freiermuth in this one. I think that the Falcons safeties are going to be kind of clamps on opposing tight ends this year.
And if Arthur Smith uses Freiermuth the same way he used to use Jonnu Smith, that's not really the best way to use Freiermuth, because Jonnu would give them 7 yards after the catch per catch. Freiermuth doesn't have the wheels to do that. He's more like, second half of career Jason Witten. So if the Steelers continue to pass block poorly, it might be hard on Freiermuth.
That was a really good point you made, especially during like the preseason, where I still kind of viewed Freiermuth as one of those final like life raft type of tight ends that you could grab in drafts. But if he's brought in to block a ton, there goes the value in all likelihood. Cards, Bills on Sunday, taking place in Orchard Park. We got 47.5 is the over under in this one. That the spread has come down in the Cards direction over the course of the summer. This was 7.5 in favor of the Bills for much of it. Now it's 6.5. That's, it's kind of a line that baits me back into the Bills side of this, with it just being a touchdown. But I think that the big thing that people have pointed out is Matt Milano's injury. I think that really opens up like the underneath stuff for the Cardinals. So I think Trey McBride could arguably be tight end 1 this week as a result of that.
It could be. I definitely like the Cardinals to cover, but that's just kind of because of where I think the two teams are headed relative to the assumptions of previous years. It's like I think this Bills team is set up more poorly than they have been in 4 years. So I'm not going to expect them to be at their best in that 4-year sample. Meanwhile, Cardinals clearly on the way up. So I like the chances of the Cardinals to kind of win this game. If it were in Arizona, I think I would pick them, but certainly to cover, I like the Cardinals. I don't know about the linebacker thing as much. Like Terrell Barnard is looking pretty good, and that Tulane one from last year had some moments as a rookie. So maybe Sean McDermott can get those guys ready, but they're also dealing with turnover at safety. So the corners are probably worse than they've been in a few years too. I'm not going to pick the Cardinals to win, I guess, but I do like them to cover. And McBride's a good bet. Like you said, Harrison has a big advantage on those corners. Connor should be able to run. If those linebackers are at all, underprepared for this, Connor can make them hurt for it. So I think there's various ways the Cardinals can hurt the Bills. With the Bills, it's the same as ever. It's like Josh Allen does everything more or less.
On the Bills side, I have a couple of like flex potential ideas to throw at you. Would you feel okay in a 12-teamer about starting one of either Khalil Shakir or Ray Davis against this Cards defense?
Yeah, I like both players. Those are both two of my guys. I'm still a truther about Shakir. The Curtis Samuel turf toe thing really, I think, opens up the door for Shakir. And I want to say Davis because I'm so much of a James Cook skeptic at the same time. But Shakir is definitely playing 50 snaps in this game, in my opinion. Like the line about Shakir getting rotated out. I don't think that's possible, especially with Curtis Samuel's turf toe thing. So Khalil Shakir in particular, I think you can feel good about starting this week. Davis is getting a little more cute / more of a deep league, dynasty league kind of thing.
Yeah, I always felt like Shakir was kind of way underdrafted throughout draft season. And I think he's going to kind of show why here in this first game. On to Chicago. This sneakily, I think, is one of the more interesting games on this slate. We actually do have a question about a certain rookie quarterback playing in this one versus another. So Ronaldo he's got the rookie bug. He loves drafting rookie quarterbacks. He's got Caleb Williams. He's got Jaden Daniels in his lineup that he's choosing between. Whomst would you choose between Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels?
I pretty much have to recuse myself on this one. I think Daniels is in for a rough year, and I think Caleb is totally the real deal, and I think Caleb has a lot of help. So I prefer Caleb Williams, but admittedly, Caleb cannot run like Jaden can. So if you just need that, 12 fantasy points on the ground condition, then Caleb can't get you that. But I think he's just gonna have so much better of a rookie year.
Yeah, I side with Caleb rather narrowly in this first one. Like I do want to see, how Daniels looks in the regular season. He looked good, obviously, in the preseason, but that doesn't mean a ton. And they get rid of Jahan Dotson. They're playing funny games with Ben Sinnott, so like they're not like kind of optimizing.
They're playing 9 on 11, and then Cliff Kingsbury calls the plays.
Yeah, so that alone I think steers me in Caleb's direction. And then at the flex, would you go Deontay Johnson or Jerome Ford?
This one's closer for me. I think they're both pretty good answers, at least in PPR. I think Deontay Johnson is pretty much always pretty good looking this year, but Jerome Ford is who I lean there just because he might play something like 40-45 snaps.
Yeah, that one's tricky.
And I think the Browns are going to win that game kind of easily, so that's the other thing.
Oh yeah, so that definitely like puts like the rushing upside, kind of in.
But they're both good picks if it's PPR, especially. I think Johnson's he's gonna get like 10 targets a game every week.
I think so too, and I'm spoiler alert, I kind of feel okay about the Panthers. But back to this Titans-Bears game. Where's your head at? Like, basically what I want to know is who emerges as that second target for Caleb Williams within this offense. Is it going to be Keenan Allen for the first half, and then there's a changing of the guard, or is there a chance Rome Odunze is that number 2 option right away?
It'll be interesting to see how the Titans handle this, because they signed L'Jarius Sneed in the offseason, and Sneed, he's going to change the complexion of any defense he plays for. He's definitely one of the more versatile and effective corners, but I feel like if Sneed has input, and if Sneed still has like AFC West brain, it'd be funny if he lobbied to cover Keenan Allen specifically, even though in my opinion, Keenan Allen is clearly less threatening than DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. But this Titans defense, it's well built in the sense that like there's no obvious weakness. They got a couple, definite guys, and someone like Sneed, Jeffrey Simmons, maybe Sweat can be the next, maybe Tavondre Sweat can be the next Ted Washington or something like that. But I don't see where the disruptiveness is going to come from aside from Simmons. And I'm not convinced that these corners are the kind of guys you want covering for more than 2 or 3 seconds at a time. Like McCreary, good player, but he's better underneath. Awuzie used to be fast, but he's a little aging coming back from that ACL. Sneed's been used to playing downhill for years, and if the Titans are not that good on defense, I think the whole thing might be a bit creaky. So DJ Moore is who I'm picking to have the big game pretty much any week. And if I had to pick someone to be second, it would be Odunze, I guess, because I don't know. I just think everybody's underrating him pretty much.
How do we see this Titans backfield start out?
Both Pollard and Spears are going to play, I think, and I think it's as simple as they're going to be about 50-50. Maybe Julius Chestnut goes in for a 3rd and 1 or something like that. I can't really see it being much else, but yeah, this is part of why I hate what the Titans are doing, because Pollard and Spears are both good players, but there's no power concept in this offense. In the meantime, they're investing in a mauler like JC Latham. To me, it seems like you should get someone who can, really crack the shoulder pads between the tackles to take advantage of that offensive line. But they're just kind of going with like 2 speed guys and hoping it kind of some power comes of it. Maybe it will. But I think they're really imbalanced, and I think they're going to be volatile. They're going to over the long haul. I think the Titans offense comes out to more or less league average. It's just I think the production that keeps them buoyed to whatever extent it comes out to is just because they face some bad defenses some weeks, and then it's kind of like, how hard is that to screw up? This is not one week though. One such week. The Bears defense is good.
It is good. You know who I think the power concept guy is in that offense?
Will Levis, John.
Will Levis.
You may be right. It's probably their best option. So, yeah, we'll see what Callahan is made of. If he just sends Levis into all these like Tebow style dives at the goal line, I'll have more respect for him and stop calling him a nepotism case.
Right. So, for instance, we have Levis, I think, fairly ranked at 21. But me, as a Levis guy, I think I'm not saying he's startable in 12 teamers, but he's close. So maybe by next week you're moving him in, but we shall see. Let's keep rolling here. We've got Pats Bengals. This one, I mean, obviously the Jamar Chase detail, we're going to have to see what ends up happening with him if he's on, some sort of pitch count, as it were. How high would that detail elevate someone like T. Higgins in a game that's, the biggest spread on the board?
I don't know. The Patriots might put Christian Gonzalez on Higgins, and that would be a pretty tough matchup for him if so. But I don't know. The Bengals should be fine. I just think this isn't going to be a game where the Bengals dominate exactly, and I don't think they're going to air it out really. The Patriots defense is still respectable, and I think we'll find that they're going to play pretty high motor. Maybe surprise people the way the Cardinals did last year, where, people are kind of, me included, I thought they were going to get like, 40-0 every week. The Patriots will run a lot and make the game short. So I think they're going to cover. I think the Patriots will cover. But yeah, if Chase is out, Higgins should have a good game. Yoshivas would be set up pretty well in that case. So yeah, Zach Moss and Chase Brown should both, I think, see 12 carries in this game.
Do you have the guts to start either Brown or Moss if you have them?
Yeah,
12-teamer.
I mean, okay. It's a now or never kind of thing, It's like you got a home more than touchdown favored status. Like if you can't start those guys in this week, it's like you took a 12th rounder in the 9th.
Yeah, honestly. So,
which maybe did happen for all I know, but I think they're both going to be pretty busy actually.
Okay, that's sort of like the expensive brand version of like what's going on in Tennessee, where that's more like the dollar store version of a running back committee.
Yeah, I think Moss can only take so much, and therefore Brown is just necessarily necessary. Like there's no other way it can go.
Facts. Let's go Indianapolis, Houston. The money is just pouring in on Houston. They are road favorites. They might be the only road favorite on the board this week. No, the Vikings are as well. But you think Indianapolis, keeps this one close? And if so, what players are fueling that?
Yeah, I'm not thrilled with the prospect of having to bet against Shane Steichen at home, especially if it's, the visiting team is favored. Also, I think the Colts are going to be run dependent this year. Part of why I actually don't think the Colts are going to be a playoff relevant team is that they don't have any depth behind Jonathan Taylor. Like the cutting Evan Hull thing, I think shows that either Steichen, great as a game planner as he is, great as a schemer as he is, either he is not involved with the personnel decisions there or he should not be, because they are a team that needs to run the ball 30 times a week, and they only have one guy who's an NFL caliber runner right now. So for 1 week, I guess that should be fine. Jonathan Taylor might have a pretty huge year. That offensive line for the Colts being better is a start. But I think Houston's run defense was really good last year. It's probably going to be quite good this year. But I just, I'm not going to be picking the Houston side for the spread. And it's more to do with just like I think the Colts are going to kind of keep their defense pretty well rested just out of the fact that they need to run so much and should be pretty good at it. And then subtly, that Colts defense does have a pass rush that could be pretty sick this year. So it's a game that has some dangers for the Texans. The Texans look like a Death Star to me, but the Colts, they have some real weapons of their own too.
Yeah, I think that they're just kind of just getting undervalued here, being underdogs at home by this much against a divisional team. And um, there's some interesting stats out there about divisional underdogs at home. They tend to cover in week one, so bear that in mind. Let's go Jags Dolphins. Another high total in this one, set at 49. I guess the big question here is the Jags, they so retooled their pass catching group. It made me worried about Evan Ingram during draft season, but do you feel like he's like kind of a good mismatch in this particular setup against the Dolphins?
I think it's probably a good setup for everyone in the Jaguars offense. Really, it's one of those things. I think if it goes badly for them, it's just because they kind of got left out and not because they so much, failed to do what they were supposed to. Uh, I don't have a great sense for how the Dolphins defense is even supposed to look given the Phillips and Chubb injuries and the turnover in general. Like Jalen Ramsey might be out, I guess. I got to follow up on that one. Kendall Fuller is a good addition at corner, but I just am not convinced that this Dolphins defense can get to the quarterback the way that it needs to. And I think the Jags offense is set up pretty well, even though it looks like they're going to have Press Taylor call the plays again. Having Brian Thomas is going to help create more space for the whole offense, and that alone is going to get ETN going more, which would do wonders for the whole offense. And so, I think the Jags start fast. You'll even see kind of like was Press Taylor unduly criticized? Was he bullied? Was Press Taylor bullied by critics last year? And then like almost immediately after that happens, the Jags will kind of like start losing ground again because defenses will just adjust to Thomas. But this week, I think their whole offense is good.
Yeah, I do as well. On the Dolphins side, is it going to be a Mostert week or an Achane week?
Impossible, John. It's
Yeah.
impossible. Friggin' no. I don't know. If I had to pick, it's Achane because he's got more talent, but it's a slightly dangerous spot for the Dolphins, even though it's a warm weather game and even though the Jags aren't like a dominant defense. It's like Tyreek Hill's talent, Jalen Waddle's talent, Mike McDaniel's, genius, probably pushes the Dolphins offense to a good showing here, but it's not because Tua did a good job. It's like they created a lot of yards after the catch magic. Watch out for Jonnu Smith. If Mike McDaniel is as smart as I think he is, then he's going to use Jonnu Smith more like he was used at Florida International and less like he has been used every single year in the NFL for whatever reason.
Yeah, I ended up getting some late Jonnu Smith. I was a late adopter of his during draft season this year, but I'm glad I at least have some because he could be like an interesting wrinkle, sort of like the change up to everyone else in that offense.
There are two tight end offense. There are two tight end offense, and Smythe is the blocker now. Jonnu might actually get a chance to run, and he is fast.
Let him do his thing. Before we get on over to our next game, we got a message from our friends over at Verse Fantasy. Why wait to win in fantasy all season? With Verse Fantasy, you can cash in every single week. Download the Verse apps, sync your fantasy league, and start wagering and winning today. Verse Fantasy is the new way to play fantasy. There's no need to draft a new team or bring your league to a new platform. Simply sync your current league from ESPN, Sleeper, or Yahoo into the Verse Fantasy app and instantly get money lines and spreads for your league's matchups that week. Playing fantasy is fun and cool, but playing for real money, that's the future. Play for real money on your own underdog lines and placing contest entries between primetime games to bet on your own comeback. Verse will even show you your odds for winning the title or being crowned the Sacco, which, of course, everyone's worst nightmare. Enter the arena this season with Verse Fantasy and use promo code ROTO, that's ROTO, to get 100% deposit match up to $50 when you sign up. We also got a message from our pals over at FanDuel. NFL kickoff is here, and FanDuel is giving away a special new user offer to RotoWire fans. Sign up and bet $5 on any FanDuel market and receive $200 in bonus bets plus 3 free weeks of NFL Sunday Ticket. It's a pretty good deal. Visit sportsbook.fanduel.com or download the FanDuel Sportsbook in the App Store today to claim this offer. All right, game of the week, Panthers Saints. What's up?
Yeah, I don't exactly want to pick the Panthers, but I guess I have to if I'm picking anyone in this game. I think it's just over for the Saints. I don't think they're gonna slowly sink from week one. I think it's just gonna be pretty much a nightmare season until they fire Dennis Allen. The Saints defense should come out with some level of, competitiveness, competence, but I can't trust that offense at all. Even if the newest Kubiak is any good, that offensive line still a mess. They can't throw the ball, in my opinion. So I think the Panthers, with Canales being the much better offensive thinker of the two teams, they should get Bryce Young looking a lot better than last year, which still isn't saying much. I mean, he could still be quite bad and a lot better than last year, but a big improvement would still matter. And I think the Panthers are going to be able to run this game because they should be able to. I think the game should be close enough that they should have the luxury of giving volume to a guy like Chuba Hubbard. And that Panthers offensive line is pretty well paid. As good as that Saints front seven might be at the run defense, the Panthers really might have the kind of offensive line that can sort of just wear down even a good defense if they can get somebody over 15 carries. So give me the Panthers. I was down on Chuba Hubbard starting week one as much as I'm buying in. And now that I'm looking at it more, I was like, no, Chuba's going week one too.
Yeah, I got him in a bunch of lineups. I think he's my most drafted player in redraft leagues. I know this because I use the My Leagues feature on RotoWire.com, which is a great way, especially when you do too many fantasy leagues, such as myself, to keep track of who's where and who all you got. I learned this afternoon that almost 50% of my teams have Chuba Hubbard representation. So love that. Vikings Giants. Sam Darnold, do we like it? This is notoriously an arena that he sees ghosts in.
Yeah, so tough one to call, in my opinion. Both teams are pretty bad, but the difference to me is the Vikings, in my opinion, are not coached particularly well, or at least I am not that sold on Kevin O'Connell. I do have full faith in Brian Dable, and the Giants do have a better team than they had last year. Granted, letting Xavier McKinney walk, that might sting. I'm not convinced that Newbin or Belton or whoever they have can imitate him, but this Giants defense might be pretty tough in the front seven. I mean, Thibodeau and Burns, that's a lot, especially with Dexter Lawrence in the middle. So there's a way it can go wrong against that defense, even if your team is pretty good. And I guess you'd say the Vikings offensive line is better at pass blocking than run blocking. But in any case, if Darnold's ending up in, 3rd and 9 situations over and over, there's probably going to be some turnovers at some point. And Brian Burns, Thibodeau can kind of give you, give more reasons for the things to go wrong. And Dable much better than O'Connell. So I'll take the Giants to win. Daniel Jones probably has a good enough game that I'll have trolls, tweeting at me about, you said Daniel Jones wasn't very good. Now who's stupid? And it'll be tough. It'll be hard for me.
Yeah, I mean the 180 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception from Daniel Jones, clearly what carries them over the finish line in that game, and portends a great season.
Hey, that's what happened 2 years ago too. His only good games were both against the Vikings, one in the playoffs and one in the regular season. So yeah, Daniel Jones owns the state of Minnesota perhaps entirely, and he continues his dominance here.
That's a good point. One last Vikings thing. Aaron Jones says that this is the best he's ever felt going into a season. Like, they've got a whole different kind of training program for him than what he was doing in Green Bay. Do you take any stock in that? Like, sometimes that kind of stuff does matter, but it's hard to, pick and choose when exactly.
Yeah, I have no idea. Maybe feeling better is just like when you're in less pain or like you're more flexible or something. I guess we'll see if those kinds of exercises correlate to the NFL field at all. I don't have much hope for that offense. I don't have much hope competitively for the Vikings offense. I do think there'll be plenty of garbage time numbers for guys like Jefferson, Addison, maybe even Naylor, maybe even the running backs. But I think they're going to fall behind pretty much every week. And so I'm not expecting the rushing. I expect the Vikings to have a bottom 5 rushing volume offense this year. So that's why I'm not getting a whole lot of Jones.
Yeah, and there's only so many dump offs that can like kind of make up the difference. But when he's the lead back, averaging like 12 carries a game or something like that, I am interested in Naylor for DFS purposes this week. Might have to check that out over on FanDuel and maybe even on Underdog as well. All right, we got a few more games here. I'm just gonna ask you one player to circle from each of these following games. Raiders Chargers. Who's got your eye?
J.K. Dobbins. There's a lot of hype from even Daniel Popper, it seems like now, the beat writer, and he's reliable. So if Dobbins is Dobbins, it's over.
That's I'm rooting for J.K. Dobbins really hard.
Me too.
So I would hope to see that. I like all the half the Chargers used to play for the Ravens anyway. So and I'm a huge Harbaugh guy. Do love Antonio Pierce. I'm actually low key excited for that game. I think that's going to be fun. I think we're going to learn a lot about both teams in that one. But the Chargers have a little bit more like room to grow as the season goes on. So many new pieces there. Raiders, even though they're underdogs and they're on the road, I feel like that it's going to be like
it'll be close.
People are going to be freaking out. I feel like in Raiders land if they don't win this one against a team with just completely new parts, a team that they also dismantled to the point of the Chargers firing their coach and their GM after the last time that they played. The Ghost of Rust Bowl, Seahawks Broncos.
Yeah, I think this is a tough spot for the Broncos. If it was in Denver, they'd be looking a lot better because when it's hot in Denver, those visiting teams, they suffer from the air the most when the temperature is high. And I think there's probably conversely a little bit of a, leaving Coors Field effect for the Broncos going to Seattle in this one. So, yeah, I believe Seattle covering by 6. I think there's even a way for Bo Nix to play okay and for that to still happen because the Seahawks offense might just be pretty tough. I mean, they got, I think, 3 receivers who could go over 1,000 yards. Noah Fant is, it looks like he's trending toward playing, hopefully. So, yeah, meanwhile, the Seahawks defense is pretty tough in the front 7.
Yeah, excited to see what McDonald does with those chess pieces there in Seattle. Cowboys Browns in Cleveland. Cleveland 2.5-point favorites.
Yeah, I think the Browns take this. Dallas, of course, is never comfortable on the road, and this is a pretty visible game. The more visibility is on Dallas, the more they tend to choke, and it's like on the road against the Browns. The Browns are a tough matchup for Dallas anyway. Tough run defense. Dallas is making it harder on themselves by not even seemingly trying to be good at running the ball this year. So you put Dak in enough 3rd and 12s, he's going to start turning the ball over against these corners with Myles Garrett going against Guyton, who played at right tackle last year and wasn't even that good at it for Oklahoma. I think the Browns kind of rough them up, actually.
I do as well. That Browns defense is nasty. This season comes down to what iteration of Deshaun Watson we see, but I think the defense and this one being in Cleveland probably ends up being enough. Excited to see what Jalen Tolbert does, though, for my fantasy interests. Commanders Bucks down in Tampa. Bucks only 3.5-point favorites in this one.
Yeah, I'm almost surprised it's that high, though, because it seems like there's a lot of optimism for Daniels among people who aren't me. And I think, even though I think that the Washington offense will start better than it finishes this year, I still think it starts poorly. And going to Tampa is not that easy, even though they're sketchy at corner. If you just put 2 safeties high every play, I don't think Daniels can throw in the NFL, and the Washington can't run the ball. Cliff Kingsbury can't think of a new play. It's in my opinion, it's like Tampa should just be able to kind of submission hold win this. They shouldn't even need to throw the ball, but if they do need to, Mike Evans cannot be covered by those corners.
No, the Washington secondary is putrid. That's not a good sign when you're going up against.
They're selling
like Evans and
Sainristil as
Scott.
CB1, 5'9" CB1 rookie against Evans. Go for it.
The former wide receiver at Michigan turned corner. That should go really well. Rams Lions.
One of the toughest, most interesting games to call. I'll say the Lions, largely propelled by their revamped corners, but should be a close, tough game.
I'm excited to see how excited I am with my Blake Corum exposure after this one. That's what I'm looking
We need to make
most.
season-long declarations about that backfield based on what happens in that game, no matter what. Whatever way it goes, we have to.
Not just this game, the first drive.
Yeah. If Corum returns the first kick, victory lap for
that's right.
Kyron.
I'm already doing my warm-up stretches and all that good stuff. Rounding it out, we got Jets Niners. I think, sort of like what you were saying earlier in the show about the Bengals running backs. Like if you're not going to use them, it is a 8.5 point favorite at home. When are you going to use them? I've been saying that the Niners are not going to be as good this year. Here's my chance to, get off to a hot start. Give me the Jets. I feel like, Garrett Wilson's going to go nuts. I think Breece Hall is going to have a good game. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be fine. I think he's going to play more than 3 snaps in this one. In the Jets. And Purdy's going to be in hell from that defense too.
Yeah, that Jets defense looks tough. It looks deep. They're both strong in personnel and system, and they've worked together for a while now. So they've got the telepathic link kind of thing going on, and it's tough to get around them. So I like the call, John. I don't know how to call this game. It's makes me anxious, but I definitely like the Jets to cover. I don't feel like this is going to be a game the 49ers win by 5 or more, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, good defenses seem to fluster Purdy last year. I mean, you look at the Browns game, for example, you look at the Ravens game. I think the Jets defense is, right on par with those, if not better this year. So I think that and, Ayuk not really like meshing into the offense until late on in the off season. I don't know. I feel weird about the Niners this year. I don't think they're going to be bad, but I don't know. I don't think they're going to be like.
This might be an under game too, just because of, I guess it's a little juice, unfortunately. But the 49ers don't want to open up the offense in this game. It's really a bad time to do it, even if they want to do it the rest of the year.
No, exactly. So yeah, that under 43.5, or better yet, 44 at some shops. That's going to do it for us here on this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Obviously, everyone's already done their drafts, but you want some lineup advice? Go ahead. Go to rotowire.com/try. Also, if you checked us out on the live stream, please like and subscribe to the RotoWire YouTube channel. And of course, we have a RotoWire football YouTube channel as well. So like and subscribe to both of those. For Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.